see somebody or fixed wing? Oh, that's right. For the retirement, yeah, that's right.
All right, we're getting close. Mark,
Tom, when are you gonna go? About 2.
should we move closer? We want to be the cool kids. I mean, whenever you like, because, you know, the formality is lots, obviously, the workshop.
Yeah, once I start.
Sorry, I'm ready.
Okay.
Played last night. Played very well.
And we're on. For anybody watching live at home, welcome to the Thursday, September 23rd, Webster Town Board Workshop. And we have 5 agenda items tonight. The first one is the Webster Association of Senior Program Supporters, betterly known as WASP. Presentation of the town board on annual transportation services provided to Webster seniors. So, who's going to present for WASP? I've got a sneaky suspicion right here.
Please know that this is the first time I've ever spoken on a microphone. So if you can hear me,
Wait a minute, the first time in your life?
yes, that I've
That
ever.
can't be.
Well, it is.
It's
Okay.
time for everything.
Well, good afternoon and thanks for having us. My name is Deb Riley and I have been a volunteer with this organization for 6 years. The last 4 years I've been involved doing some administrative duties and also doing some dispatching. So the organization was started by a citizen here in Webster, Bud Johnson, who was simply taking his neighbors to doctor's appointments who had no family here. Sooner than later, other neighbors started asking him whether or not they could take them to their doctor's appointments. And so he saw a need back in 2007 and 2008 that they needed transportation, these seniors in our development. So he went to the Webster Recs Board and he said, what can we do? So with 2 years of planning, officially in 2010, it became a nonprofit organization called WASP, which is the Webster Association of Senior Program Supporters. I call it the Webster Senior Transportation Group. It's a little easier. But we provide services to the senior and disabled residents of the Webster Central School District. We take them to their medical appointments, whether it's chemotherapy, PT, dentist, hearing, a pharmacy stop, you name it. In 2019, we also added banking. And in early 2020, we added trips to local barbers and hairdressers because our clients deemed that that was the next thing that they needed help with. We also do tax transportation to local tax preparation in Webster in the spring. So those are the new services. We've expanded our scope from medical and included those new services. So you're probably wondering, what do you do if you have a senior who needs a ride? The senior calls the WASP line and leaves their telephone number and name and their appointment information, such as the date and time and where they're going to go. Our dispatchers check the messages daily. A dispatcher will then take that information and start canvassing our volunteer drivers. And oh, by the way, if we didn't have volunteer drivers, this would not exist. So kudos to our volunteers. Once we have a driver for that person to go to their appointment, we call the client back, let them know the name of the driver. Then 2 to 3 days before the appointment, that driver will also call the client, confirm the appointment information, and they'll arrange a pickup time. We do ask that you call 3 days ahead of your appointment time because we need time to find a volunteer. But I can tell you right now, we have appointments on our system out through December. That's how reliable we are. Some interesting statistics is that 27% of our appointments are just local. 73% are out in Monroe County. So we do ask a donation of $5 if we take you for an appointment within Webster, and $10 if we take you anywhere within Monroe County. It's interesting to note that in the past 12 months, the youngest person we've taken is 53, and the oldest person we've taken is 96. And I also can tell you that a third of all of the clients that we take are over the age of 85. So we are also have a relationship with Medical Motors in Rochester, so if somebody needs a wheelchair van, we can assist with that as well in scheduling. If a common person such as ourselves calls in for wheelchair transportation, it's normally in the high 90s for a round trip. But through us, we have a deal with them where they charge us only $58, and we ask the citizen to maybe donate $30 of that, and then we pick up the additional $28 as an organization. So we're under Lifespan of Greater Rochester, which is a nonprofit that is an elder source for the County of Monroe. So they provide training for our volunteers. They also do background checks, DMV checks, and they provide supplemental liability insurance to the drivers who want to take their own car. We do have a car that you can use as a volunteer. It's being leased by Hyundai here in Webster, Vision Hyundai. For one reason or another, there are several volunteers who can't take their own car. Whether they share a car with a spouse, they have a large truck that an elderly person can't get into. We have 3 people that will take that car consistently when they're asked to volunteer for an appointment, and we have 4 to 5 others that will use it on occasion. But otherwise, the remaining 25 volunteers use their own vehicle to transport our citizens. Our citizens are living longer, and the population of older adults is increasing. Longer life also provides new challenges for that senior and their caregivers. So a lot of the clients that we take tell us how much easier it is for them to pick up the phone and schedule an appointment with us rather than take their child, their adult child, and ask them to take off work to take them to an appointment. If we can help these citizens remain in their home longer and give them a sense of security, that they can meet their medical needs, then our job is done. So thank you very much, and I'd like to introduce our president, Mike Donovan.
Thank you again for allowing us to come before the board and talk about the great service that we do offer within the community. The preliminary 2020 census data shows that the town of Webster is over 45,000 folks. Over 65, 9,300 or a little over 9,300, and under 65 and disabled, 2,400. So right now we have a client base we're showing of about 11,700 folks that could utilize our service here in the community. It's something that, as Deb mentioned, keeps seniors in their homes, keeps their kids happy that we're able to provide the service, and in a low-cost venue. We passed around a chart, that bar chart, and really the elements that are the most important are, these are 8-month numbers 2000 through 2018 through 2021. These are called one-way trips. That's how we report it to Lifespan, is a one-way trip, because not everybody takes trips front and back. Sometimes we just take them to dialysis and somebody else picks them up. Back in 2018, for 8 months, we had 768 trips. Then in 19, we jumped up to 1,353. Then in 2020, we dropped back to 850. We were down for approximately 60 days because of COVID. This year, we're at 1356. So we're back on the road to having a huge year again, which again is beneficial to the citizens of Webster. Deb mentioned quickly that volunteers make up the organization. We currently have 33 volunteer drivers that provide the service to the clients Monday through Friday. So again, it's a great service that we offer. The client and the driver stay with each other. The driver does not leave the appointment, stays with the client at the appointment, which normally is an hour and a half, so they do not have to wait for somebody else to pick them up. If they were using, let's say, Medical Motors or Lyft or Uber or any other car or any other service. So again, it's really important that we continue on with the WASP organization, and I'd like to turn it over to Dave Norton to talk about the budget.
Thanks for having us again. Third time, thanks for having us. I want to know, we only have a few minutes, so I'm going to go right to the point. We have a budget of $22,000 annually. I'll just briefly go down some of the categories. $2,500 we need for supplies, website maintenance, and then our professional expenses for the CPA to file the Form 990 for our 501c3 organization. We have about a $7,700 car expense. That's the lease, the insurance, maintenance, cleaning, and then that also includes medical motors. Medical motors bills, as Deb mentioned, for any wheelchair transportation. And we have a what they call a Tier 2 contract with medical motors to do that. Contractor expenses we have 3 part-time paid dispatchers, and those folks are paid via like a consultant. It's a 1099. They're not under a W-2 situation. It's a 1099 form for taxes. And then we also have $1,000 that we budget. It's not enough, but we try to put on a volunteer appreciation lunch or dinner annually. We weren't able to do it last year, but we're planning one for October 6th this year. Because these folks are the lifeblood. That's the foundation for our organization. We do have a budget revenues, and this year we had a budget shortfall of $4,000. What makes up our revenues are we budgeted $2,300 in donations, service clubs, the Masons. We do get help from Vision Hyundai, and they pay us back half of our lease, which is very generous of them. And we do note that on the side of the car, the lettering on the car says powered by Vision Auto Group, which is, they're very nice. And so we also go out to other organizations, service organizations, but 2020, 2021, because of the pandemic, they're having the same issues we are, raising money, having social events, etc. We're very, very grateful for the town of Webster. As you, over the past few years, have donated $7,000 to us, which is very helpful. I mean, it's not half our budget, but it's up there, and you're the largest donation that we receive. We also received $1,500 from the Village of Webster, and they've been doing that consistently for the last several years as well. Another big line item is our rider client donations. We budgeted $7,400 based on our experience for this year. So we have a shortfall, and we were very, very fortunate this year to receive a $4,000 one-time grant from the Carpus Family Foundation. I think you folks are familiar with them because they helped with the Miracle Field. So we're able to get through this year, but we're going to try to get back on track as fundraising. One of our largest fundraising event that we do is the model train show that we hold at the Webster Parks and Recreation Department. But in 2020 and in 2021, we're not able to do that. We're hoping that we can do that in 2022. But with that in mind, we're looking to go out and raise some more money. Our growth, we think, and I think it's with prices going up, that our budget for 2022 will be in the vicinity of about $25,000. We've got our dispatchers, we have to stick to at least the minimum wage, and that's going up. Cost of supplies, car expense, and medical motors expense is going up as well. And as I said, the annual train show is, we're hoping we can do it in 2022. But we're not sure yet, it's still uncertain. In closing, right on the money, is again, we're very grateful for the $7,000 that you folks have given us over the years. But we're wondering, and we would like to consider increasing that for 2022 up to $9,000, a $2,000 increase. And the operative word is consideration. And if there's anybody have any questions, quick questions for any of us? I do. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
You were one of the first meetings I had when I was supervisor in January of 2020, and then COVID hit and no more meetings. And the one thing that I walked away from that meeting was that you said it again tonight, your coverage area is the Webster Central School District.
Correct.
Which includes the town of Penfield. Have you gone to the town of Penfield and asked my friend Tony the Fountain for any money?
We were hoping no one did that. No.
It's an answer.
Tom,
No, we have not.
we have only, in the last 12 months, we've only taken 6 people
That live in that district?
who live in that district.
Right.
And that, enough said, okay.
But that's a great point, but we have not.
Okay, well, based on those statistics, I don't know if you should.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I'm not gonna ask you. Other than that, you know, obviously, well, you might not know this, the preliminary budget for 22 is in the books. And there's a process now over the next several weeks that I think Paul ends up on November 4th, the final budget.
November 4th.
Well, I'll talk with you offline or whatever, but I don't even know if there is any, I don't know the process of moving from preliminary budget to the final budget with changes. We didn't have changes last
Board
year.
has to approve the changes after the public hearing.
So, I just don't want to set false expectations.
Correct. Well, we appreciate that. And we appreciate everything you folks have done for us over the years. It's been great. It's been a great relationship.
But we'll be in contact. I do want to, I think we got a budget meeting, what, Monday?
We do.
All right, you and I, I'm sure you'll educate me on all that. Thank you.
Thank you for entertaining our time and your time.
And Deb, if that really was your first time on a microphone, wow, nicely done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What size shirt do you need?
I mean, extra large, maybe double X, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. The next item is a discussion to review a proposed dedication of land adjacent to Woodford Green Subdivision to the town of Webster. Who is leading this? Is it?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Come on up. Have at it.
All right, I'm Ryan White from McMahon Associates. I'm here tonight with Megan and Matt Salamano. They're the intended buyers of a parcel located on Chigwell Lane North in the town of Webster between Phillips Road and Salt Road. And it's a proposed 2-lot subdivision. The intention is to have Megan and Matt purchase Lot 1, which would contain, we have a site plan for a single-family residence on the parcel. The second proposed Lot 2 is intended, it's owned by John Naka currently, the entire parcel, and it's intended to be dedicated to the town of Webster. So we're here tonight to request approval for dedication. We previously were at the September 7th planning board meeting where they wrote a referral letter in support of the dedication. And the parcel area to be dedicated is approximately 10 acres. It's contiguous with several other properties already owned by the town of Webster. I have several visual references if you'd like to see them.
Well, tell you what, I do not think the planning board referral letter is in our packet.
I have a copy of that too if you'd like to read it.
And I think I have a sneaky suspicion I know why it's not, because I think it fell into the abyss on my desk. But I gotta say, mea culpa, I think this is my fault that that letter is not in copy in the package. That's, just trying to think.
I could bring, I've got one too if you want to look at it.
Did you have it?
Okay.
Here.
So Tony,
Do you want to explain the easement situation?
It's
Ownership.
easy.
Yeah, so that's the second part of it. The current owner, John Naka, will receive a tax credit for the dedication, and the assessed value is significantly impacted without access to a public right-of-way currently. So it's a little tricky during, from a legal perspective, during the dedication process and just creating a subdivision. By having a 10-foot wide strip for ingress, egress, and utility, it would be a much more fair tax assessment for that, for his tax credit that he would receive. It's a unique parcel, kind of off the primary subdivision, and there's no access for residents for a single-family home. Where if it were dedicated to the town of Webster, there's several contiguous parcels owned by the town that also have access to public right-of-ways.
Yeah, I just don't know, we refer to parity as far as giving up.
Josh, how far is this from the stub road on Chigwell Lane to the parcel we just received and purchased?
Which was at the north side of the development?
That's on the north side of the development.
I can show you a picture of that if you'd like to see it.
It's in here, isn't it?
No.
I have a overall
Yeah.
French.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's right in your back.
Oh, and that,
This is it, right?
That's correct, yes. So there's actually
I got it.
3 separate adjoining properties that have access to a public right-of-way. And one of them is the Stub Street along the north side of Chigwell Lane North. That parcel was just recently conveyed to the town of Webster as well.
is the, Bill, was the date, the letter that Tony Shiny from the planning board has, it's tabled until October 19th? For their planning board meeting on the 19th?
Yes.
Okay. I wish Charlie Janeski was here tonight. Our town attorney, because, I don't know,
I would wait till they come
yeah, I'm not really sure of the procedural I want to make sure you get to the 19th with the planning board with some clarity. I will tell you this, and Brian, I take it Mr. Naka, Attorney Naka is not here tonight?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. This is an interesting story because this 13 acres, of which Salavanos, you guys bought, I guess, 3 of it approximately from Mr. Naka.
In the process.
Now he wants to donate the 10 to the town. Attorney Naka, Mr. Naka, called me and said, hey, this was about 2 months ago. I gotta donate this 10 acres to the town because I bought this 13 acres 6-7 years ago from somebody, and they said, hey, 10 of those acres someday you're gonna have to donate to the town because that's what the town, when the subdivision was built, said. And I said to Mr. Naka, because he's not just your regular guy off the street, he's an attorney, I said, well, that's interesting. I mean, I would imagine that they would have taken title to the land back whenever the subdivision was built, not some, hey, in the future you're gonna have to donate it, because, you ever heard anything like that?
No.
No. So, and Mr. Naka's a really nice guy, so we went back and forth on the phone, and he pulled the title report, and we went to the planning board minutes and town board minutes, and we're like, there is no documentation in the town records of any such schematic, promise, whatever, of donating the land. It's like 30 years ago, right, Bill? I mean,
Yeah, it's
when-
before I was
when-
on.
So, I like a good mystery, right? So I'm like, there's gotta be something to this, right? And Josh, I don't know if it was you or Mary or somebody found that the planning board 30 years ago, when they approved the subdivision, had X amount of acres that were going to be green space. And right now, the amount of green space in that subdivision is X minus 10 acres. Isn't that interesting? Sounds like it's this 10 acres. But there's nothing that ties that in, you know what I mean, overtly in writing. So, that's the story. Now, whether that has anything to do with the price of tea in China today, I don't know, but I know Mary and Josh, you looked at this schematic as far as the layout, and have had comments. I think PRC has had comments, right? But as far as the town, well, the veterans are in conversation over here.
I have one more comment to that as well. There's another parcel just north of ours, 1486 Chigwell Lane North, that based on their lot configuration would be identical to what we're proposing. There's it almost looks like a flag lot just north of our parcel. And the lands behind that residence, those are all owned by the town of Webster as well. And it seems, from my perspective, that that parcel was cut out from a larger piece of that original subdivision.
So, Mary, thank you.
Yeah, if I can make one comment, there is an existing storm sewer that goes back there, and there's a stub of sanitary sewer. So I believe the town would want to maintain easements. We have easement over it now, and I don't see why we would abandon those utility easements. I won't speak to access easement to that potential second lot, but I think utility easements are necessary to keep.
Thank you, I absolutely agree.
Existing
That
utility
was my
easements.
question. Are we
Not
talking about
proposed,
utilities?
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm glad we got a lot of people in the room tonight, I hope a lot of people are watching. Hey,
I would even like to this approved subdivision, at which time, once it's approved, as an approved subdivision, owner of lot 2.
you can.
Speak up.
That's it. This is not administrative action on the subdivision, this is actually going to the planning board, is that correct?
Correct. They say tables it and refer it to the town board to discuss.
So we're gonna, okay,
How do the board feel about abandoning a utility easement? I'm not in favor of that at all.
Can I elaborate on that a little bit more?
sure.
There's easements in place right now that cover utilities for storm, sewer, and sanitary. We're not proposing to abandon any of those. We were gonna file a new ingress, egress, and utility easement for the purpose of having access to Lot 2 from that Chigwell Lane North. Upon dedication, that easement would be released, and that would give fair tax credit to John Naka for Lot 2 for dedicating that property. So it wouldn't impact anything existing today as far as easements for sanitary sewer or stormwater.
Gotcha. Well, it's kind of funny, I agree with Bill. I think there's, I don't want to do this, one board is throwing it back to the other board and, play that game. And it is kind of funny, I sit here and I say, this has a feel of like, is the town looking a gift horse in the mouth? We get a chance to get 10 acres of green space. It's going to be green space no matter what. It has been green space for 30 years. But I like what you say, Bill, because there's just something, and I go back and I hope you understand, Mr. Salamano. Like I said, if John Naka was any other profession, and I've said this to him, but an attorney, then if he tells me that story that he bought land 6-7 years ago, and well, I was told that I got to donate some of it eventually to the town, I would say, well, that's, but he's an attorney. And that struck me as odd, and it kind of makes me think in our position, we need to measure twice and cut once on this. So I want to make sure we do it the right way.
I want to get it subdivided, let the owner of lot 2 come in and dedicate it to it.
That seems like a reasonable thing to do.
That creates problems with the county for access to a public right-of-way. I spoke with Tim Murphy and Greg Bly, the director of real property and county surveyor. To file a subdivision, you have to have access to the right-of-way. So the only way that they're okay to dedicate the property to the town of Webster is if it happened upon subdivision of the property. So you have to have the dedication accepted, and then we could file our subdivision map in the county. So that's the other variable why we're here, except, requesting this tonight.
Okay. Remember at the beginning I said I love workshops because they're a lot less formal? It's getting pretty formal. I know Tim Murphy, I'd love to have him here. October 19th is what the letter says. You know that, right?
For the next
The
plan.
planning board, right?
Correct, yes.
The next town board meeting is October 7th. Let's see if we can get an actionable thing on this by October 7th from this board. It doesn't hold up anything for the Solomonos or Naka for what already is October 19th on the planning board. Does that seem like reasonable so that we can go back and just corroborate with Tim Murphy and all that? The sequence is we need to dedicate for that easement stuff that you just described. It's got to happen first and all that.
Sure.
Does that seem logical?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why do you need a 60-foot right-of-way to Chigwell Lane from lot 1?
So that's.
You could put a 30-foot and a 20-foot, two separate tie-ins to that road, and then lot 2 would have an access.
You could, I'd have to check the zoning for that to make sure that's allowable. I can certainly check that and speak with the client on that.
I mean, that would accomplish what you're trying to do. Mary, you check into that.
If the town was interested in having another access through that flag, that may be a possibility. That's what it comes down to. But our thought was that lot 2 was going to be dedicated to the town, is what our hope was, and then they would have access through the other surrounding properties also owned by the town.
Okay. Yeah. So, because the agenda item was discussion to review a proposed dedication of land, and we've had a discussion. I don't think we're averse to taking land, but on October 7th, we'll do some actionable thing in the dedication that will dovetail to the planning board's 19th meeting.
Okay.
So there's no loss of time. Unless something comes up between now and the 7th in the fact pattern that, makes this not a good thing for the town. And just like I said, I'm glad a lot of people are here tonight, and I hope people are watching at home. On one hand, a couple years ago when I was a citizen and not in government, I'd be watching this saying, what the freak is the town board looking to give to us, and I'll take the 10 acres. Well, now in the last 2 years, being the supervisor, the town is going to spend in 20 and 21 $250,000 to take down ash trees on land that we own. Is that correct, Paul?
That is correct, Tom.
So there's a liability to the town owning land. And there's a process and due diligence that I think, I hope the citizens appreciate the town government doing on something like this. And I love customer service, and the beauty of this plan is I don't think it holds up anything for you guys, because it's hitting the planning board on its 19th no matter what. So, sound good?
Is there anything you'd like to see from me in the meantime, or request?
I wouldn't know what to ask, but in the next couple of days, I bet you Mary and Josh and Bill and the people who, I depend on for that type of, specificity, maybe we'll have a list.
Okay,
All right?
sounds good, thank you.
All right. So I'm sitting down with Kim Doyle in my office tomorrow to do the October 7th agenda. I put a note here, Dolly, that we'll have, what I'll call the agenda item, but we'll get it on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
And hopefully the 19th at the planning board, everything will work out. All right? Okay. Next up, no, we're not that far behind for what was a couple of Mary Harrington, with the assistance of what could be people from Passero, people from Bayer, people from Weta, people from the town. Mary is going to present a sequence of events, a tentative sequence of events needed to culminate with a targeted April 2022 groundbreaking on the Sandbar Park project. So, Mary, that's good. Take it away.
All right. So I wanted to give you kind of a project timeline overview. So the presentation is going to cover the project history, all the progress we've made this year, the scope of what we're looking to bid out this fall, winter, what is left to complete the design and review of the project, and then the bidding schedule that I'm proposing. So first, before we jump in, I also, want to say thank you to our consultants, Passero and Bayer, are working with us very closely on this, and Weta is also very involved, and everyone at the town. So, for project history, I wanted to just initially note that in 2003 is when the town obtained the approximately 12 acres that became parkland, which we now know as Sandbar Park. In December of 2015, the park got a grant from New York State Department of State for $118,000 for consultant design of the park. In 2017, Bayer Landscape was selected for the consulting services, and then Passero was at that point contracted for Webster Sandbar Lodge A&E design, so architecture and engineering. I think we're all well aware of 2017 and 2019 being flooding years, so during the course of the 2018 to the summer, there was a Sandbar Park Project Advisory Committee that met on numerous occasions. And from those meetings, it was everyone is well aware that because of the existing road alignment, there were issues when the waters did rise. So in January of 2019, there was actually a public informational meeting to get input on whether road realignment was the way that we should go when this was just specifically a park project. Come summer 2019, the READY program was developed because the spring of 2019 into the summer, there were the high waters. So the governor initiated that program and then announced the funding in the fall of 2019 in November. In 2020, the town applied for and received READY grants. And so Pastoral was brought on to expand the scope of doing work there for the Webster Sandbar Lodge project, and then it evolved into more READY project scope. And B&L was also hired to do some work for the pump station down there. So the grant...
Mary, can I just,
Yeah.
all right, I would like to think, and it's just it's a word, but it's a word that could be inflammatory. I don't think Pastoral was brought on for a lodge. Pastoral was brought on for what the building could be, and I even think back then, Barry, it was being discussed on that committee that you were on, that it would be a bar or restaurant again.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the grants that the town received totals just under $2.7 million, so that's a combination of READY, New York State Department of State, and DASNY. So those projects are aimed at the Irondequoit Bay break wall, the realignment and elevation of Lake Road. There's 2 pump stations, sanitary sewer pump stations down there, the town and county, so protection measures for those. And then there's village water wells down there that are no longer used and were contributing to the flooding, so they're being decommissioned. So this year we've been very busy making progress on the project. There's bi-weekly calls with a ton of agencies that are involved in this push to complete the READY projects. Just going through them quickly, the town, DEC, Department of State, EFC, DASNY, Monroe County DOT, Parks, SHPO, the governor's office, the village, consultant teams, and I might be missing a couple. So we meet every other week to review the progress and see if there's any necessary coordination that needs to happen. We completed the parkland alienation, which was necessary because of the road realignment. We had to swap Monroe County right-of-way and parklands. So that happened, and that has to happen through the state, so that was a big deadline to meet this year. The design has been progressing, and it's becoming very cohesive between the READY projects and the park improvements. There's been a lot of public outreach on the project. There were 3 rec center open houses that were broadcasted. I believe every resident in town was sent a postcard about it, and it was all over our social media. We also went to the Webster Joe Obie's Farmers Market and had a tent one weekend. And then over the course of the last 4 months, we rotated big displays at the rec center, the library, and town hall. And we've also committed some staff to answering Q&A at certain times during the day. In July, we did architectural and geotechnical borings, so that gave us a better insight as to whether there was any architecturally sensitive pieces buried out there and how to structurally put together different components of the project. We also completed an application for close to $4 million in additional funding, so we're hopeful that some of that comes through to help with the project cost. And we have initiated an advisory committee for the proposed building programming. So at this point in time, we're not looking to do the entire scope that we have been designing. We're focused on getting the READY project done, and because the READY project affects the core park area so much, it makes financial and scheduling sense to do that at the same time. So this first phase will be the READY project in the core park, and then the future phases will be the east and west park improvements and the building. So the next slide shows the general areas. So the pink is what we're focused on right now, and then the blue and yellow are the expanded park improvements, and then the building is approximately going to be located right there, the green arrow. So what's left to get this project underway? There's the Archaeological Investigation, the Joint Application for a Permit, and the State Environmental Quality Review Act. These are all things that involve agency coordination. We also have to complete the project financing and the design documents. So to review the process of the archaeological investigation, we've completed a phase 1A, which is something that's just done on paper, and when it was submitted, they asked us to complete a phase 1B survey, which is investigating in the field. So when we did the soil borings in July, there was an archaeologist on site, and during those borings, there were no cultural resources uncovered. But from phase 1 and being there for the soil borings, the archaeologist reviewed and drafted a scope of work to complete the phase 1B survey, so there's a little bit more discovery that needs to happen in the field. So that draft phase of phase 1B scope was submitted for comment to the Nations and the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, on Monday this week. And they have 30 days to respond as to whether they think there needs to be changes, or if we hear no response, we proceed with what that drafted scope was. So the next step in the archaeology investigation is to address any comments and then complete that survey and report the findings. The joint application for a permit is being submitted tomorrow, so Tom, don't forget to sign that tonight. He's got it. And so that gets submitted to the New York State DEC, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Office of General Services, and the New York State Department of State, and that's mainly focused on water-related topics with the project. Those agencies have 30 days to respond, and I will caveat that with, they have 30 days to respond, but they could respond with questions, so that could restart the clock of another 30-day review period. So that timeline's not set in stone right now. Then another step, so all these are happening at the same time, just so you're aware. Another step that's happening is seeker. So tonight, the town will declare lead agency on seeker. We have completed an environmental assessment form from the help of our consultants, and that gets distributed to other agencies. Those agencies have 30 days to respond as to if they think they should be lead agency instead. So by October 28th, we'll have passed that 30-day period, and the town board workshop will review the seeker findings, and then on November 4th, the town board will have proposed a resolution to declare the determination of significance for seeker. Project financing, so on October 7th, at the town board meeting, they'll propose a resolution to advertise either a public hearing or a public meeting in the Webster Herald to set this public hearing or public meeting, which will be the week of October 25th. We're still working on a venue for this meeting, just because we're trying to accommodate if there's going to be a greater crowd than usual. And then on November 4th is when the town would propose a resolution to bond up to $9.5 million. We came to that number. It excludes the building, but it includes all of the Ready and Park project. All of the funding that we've gone for is reimbursable, so the town needs to bond the total project cost and then get reimbursed for our expenses. So that's why it's that value. And we did propose getting grant funding for scope that was in the east and west park portion of the project, which is why we're bonding up to that amount of the project as well, in case we get that funding. So the design documents, we're currently working towards 90% drawings and specs, so we anticipate to get a deliverable from the consultant team by October 27th. The town is taking 1 week to review, and I'm sure Josh, myself, Art, and Pat will all dive deep into that project review. November 17th, which gives the consulting team 2 weeks to turn around 100% drawings and specs. And then we'll have a couple days to give any final tweaks. And then pending what we hear back on agency review, if they don't affect our timeline, we're going to work to have the drawings and specs printed and ready for bid advertising by November 23rd. So right now the proposed bidding schedule is that on November 18th, there will be a resolution to advertise for solicitation of bids in the Webster Herald. That advertisement will go out on November 24th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And then we're proposing to do the bid opening on December 16th. And then finally, we could be teed up to do the town board resolution to award the contract and authorize the supervisor to sign by January 6th. So this is a best case scenario. We put the schedule together based on what we can control, what the design team has committed to a schedule to get the drawings and specs done. The town has committed to doing a quick and diligent review. So this is best case. The sooner we can bid it, the better the prices are going to be, because the contractors will be hungrier for work than if it's halfway through the winter and they've already got their schedules booked up for the summer of '22. So we've also been discussing other bidding timelines if agency review does hold anything up, but this is what we're shooting for. So does anyone have any questions?
Great, Carol, thank you. It's a tight timeline.
Yes, we're all working very hard on it, so.
Mary, thank you. And I know that, that came together in the last couple of weeks with the help of Mark Bayer and Josh Bayer and Tina and people from, there's so many from Passville that are in on this, it's a full effort. Matt Chatfield from Webster Academic Development Alliance has helped on this. I don't per se have a question, and I don't want to drag this out too much, but I feel as if there's probably people in the room tonight. In fact, I know there's people in the room tonight that are interested in one of the main things in the middle of that map we put, which was the green arrow to the building. All right. So I just want to make a couple of comments as we move forward in this process. One of the first slides you had said that in 2003, the land was obtained by the town. It was a combination, I think, of purchasing of certain parcels and also donation of parcels that aggregated up to what is now a 12-acre parcel that is Sandbar Park. But it wasn't one 12-acre parcel. I don't think it still isn't. I mean, it's a combination of several parcels. One of the things that I really try to make sure, Dolly, you've been great about this. You go back in the archives and you research planning board, town board records, and I thought it interesting when the town obtained the parcel, I think it was 1.2 acres that the current Bayside Pub is on. The town board that night, back 18 years ago, and I'm paraphrasing what it said, but it said, well, what do we do with the Bayside Pub? The person we just bought it off of, or the entity we bought it off of, is a landlord, and they have a tenant. And the town board basically that night in the minutes said, well, we'll just keep the same deal with that tenant until we figure out what to do with the land. I wonder if that town board back in 2003 thought 18 years would go by before figuring out what to do with the land was. On one of the pages, I think when you said architectural, you meant archaeological. And the borings, these big holes that had to be drilled in the A, or 1A, or whatever it's called, of this process. It's 1A, complete phase 1A was the boring. I want to really thank Chris Bilo. Chris Bilo is our Parks and Rec Commissioner. And I think Chris did a very good job, and I know Rob and Tom, the owners of the Bayside Pub, are here tonight, being sensitive to the fact, and I appreciate this more than anybody, Chris, being a business owner for 25 years and you know, being closer in empathy to business owners than to government. I was a business owner a lot longer than I was a supervisor. The archaeological firm wanted to come in and do those holes right before July 4th weekend. You did a great job, I think, and Rob, I know I was out there one day and you know, it got moved to mid to late July and tried to make it so it didn't upset your business, Rob and Tom. So it wasn't going to go into your lunch hour or into your weekends. And I think that was achieved. On that same page, you said an advisory committee for the proposed building programming has been assembled. Well, Chris, I think you're in charge of that 7-person committee. That committee, and like you said, we have tried to promote this as best we can. Postcards, open houses, having the billboards up all over the town venues where people come into them, having certain staff that are doing Q&A for the last 4 months. We promoted the fact that a portal was going to be open for volunteers to throw their name in the hat, to be on this committee, to help drive what the RFP is going to be for the restaurant/bar that will be on the same pad that right now the current Bayside is on. That portal was open from June 22nd till July 30th. We got 7 people that threw their name in the hat. Now that's a good news, bad news thing. The good news is they were volunteers. They were not handpicked by a board or anything like that. They put their name in there. And the good news is we were able to keep them all. It would have been a different situation if 29 or 129 people put their name in there. Because we can't have a committee of 129. So then it would have been a really tough process in who is going to pick who makes the final cut for a 5 or 7-person committee. So that's the good news. Volunteers, and we didn't have to cut anybody. The bad news is I gotta be honest with you, I was surprised only 7 people put their name in. For something that has had as much attention to it, I would have figured we had 200 plus people that wanted to be on that committee to drive the bus on what was gonna be there. I was surprised. But I think the committee has met twice, Chris, and your 3rd meeting is
October 4th or 5th.
okay. Almost done. As we go on, we come down to the November 4th board resolution where the estimate is we would be bonding $9.5 million. And Mary, you did a great job explaining why that number is $9.5 million, because that $9.5 million is the most that the town will go into debt on this project if we didn't get any grants. Now the grants that we are applied for, well, we've got the $2.68 million on ready, so that comes off that $9.5 million. And Matt Chatfield, you were the spearheader of the $3.99 million CFA grants, which I think by December we should know what we got awarded on that.
Correct.
Interesting enough, and this, this job has been like going back to school for me. You learn something new every day. Paul Adams and myself and several of us were on a Zoom meeting the other day with our bond counsel, Harris Beach, Municipal Solutions, who is our consultant, this and that. And the bonds that go toward the infrastructure of the ready projects in the park, those are munis basically that are tax exempt, state and federal, right, Paul?
Correct.
Interestingly enough, whatever happens at that building, whether the building is funded by the town for the shell, or funded up to the vanilla box, and I don't know if I'm talking languages that nobody understands, or if the restaurateur or bar owner decides within their bid that we just want to build the whole building. We don't want any town help on that. But let's assume the town's going to have to put some money into the foundation and into the building. Because that is a public-private relationship, they're called licensing agreements, right? The type of bond that you need to get for that project is significantly different. Is that correct, Paul?
Correct. Taxable interest.
Now, the bad news is that whoever we bid out that bond to, it has a higher interest rate, it's not as desirable as a muni in a lot of ways, because some of the tax is taxable to the company or person that buys it. Federally, not state or like that. However, that type of bond is because the flexibility then that the municipality has on having a public-private partnership, which is really a landlord-tenant type of thing. Somebody who comes in and runs that. Interestingly enough, the reason why I think the town and the board previous to this, and the board back in 2003, and this board never had to learn that, is because when they bought this land back in 2003, there was no, per se, money going in to build a building. The building was there. But now this is a different case, and so we know as that committee moves along to its end game and whenever they can get it out there for the RFQ, the RFP, whatever, we'll be better able to figure out how much of a bond we need to go to get for this shell or this vanilla box, and it will be a very significantly different structured bond because of the flexibility that is given through the federal tax bond. Last but not least, because I don't want to put everybody to sleep, where did I have it here? Sorry. What's the last of the... Oh, I know. We also found out the other day, and that's why I was hoping that Charlie Genesi, and God bless him, is not able to make it tonight, but I have to confer with him because there's, you wrote it, Mary, and you were wise to write it this way, that the week of October 25th is when we plan on doing either a public hearing or a public meeting on this project. Now, they may sound to the layman, including yours truly, that they're the same thing, but they're very different. A public hearing is basically part of a legal process that once you do the public hearing, then a board is going to take an action thereafter. Well, when we just did the sewer project, we had to have a public hearing by law before we voted on the bonding of the sewer project. Is that correct, Paul?
Yeah, that's correct.
And Bill? This project is one that does not require having a public hearing prior to going to vote on the bonding, the indebtedness. However, just because it doesn't have to have a public hearing, but the technicality of the laws, it doesn't have to have a public hearing, the town understands we would be completely tone deaf and insensitive to what is going on out there as far as the current owners, Rob and Tom, and the Bayside, and the feelings of the community on that business, that we will have a public hearing. It'll probably be what's called a public meeting because there is no, per se, town government action tied to that meeting. Usually it would be like, hey, we gotta have a public hearing, we gotta hear and then that night or a week later we do the bonding. That is not the case with this project. By the laws, it's not a 203B or something like that in municipal town law. It's a 202B, okay? But we're gonna have that meeting. And as Mary said, It's not probably gonna be in this room. It'll probably, we'll see if we have it at the Webster Thomas Auditorium, or at a venue that is, if people wanna come in, and certainly from what we've heard the last 4 months since May 27th, since we rolled this out, we will let the public come in and present and talk. Hopefully we'll know by October 7th, after conferring with legal, that my gut tells me it's going to be a public meeting and not a public hearing. So stay tuned. And my guess is the public meeting will not be a lot of people coming to talk about the fishing dock and whether it should be seats or not seats. My guess would be people will come to talk about the Bayside Pub. Just my guess, though. So that's all I got. With that in mind, thanks, Bill. Is that Barry? Yeah. Wow, Bill, I'm sorry, I just assumed it was you.
Still got a quarter cup of water.
We're almost done. So this action that we're doing tonight, which it's funny, the next two things are board resolutions, and usually a workshop, you'd rather not do resolutions at a workshop. You'd rather keep them for the regular first and third Thursday of each month, the regular board meetings. But because of this timeline, because of sending off the joint application that I've signed, the town would need to declare the town board as the lead agency for the Sandbar Park Improvement Project. Now, you used the term seeker in this presentation. What exactly does that mean, Mary?
Yeah, it's the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So we have to make sure that it's not going to have any negative impacts on what's out there now.
Right. And so this resolution, if I understand, is that the town board, if we approve this motion, we are taking responsibility as the lead agency for the Sandbar Park Improvement process, the seeker process. And then as you showed, there will be some investigations and this and that to make sure that in a couple of weeks when we say that it's a type 1 or whatever.
Right, correct.
What does that mean?
Do you want to speak to that more?
I think Zena's probably
Zena's the best one?
the best one to speak to
Most
the details
experienced
of that.
seeker.
Yeah, she's very experienced.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Zena Lago-Negro. I'm with Pastoral Associates. So the State Environmental Quality Review Act provides 2 different lists of items for a municipality to consider when they become the lead agency and are responsible for conducting the environmental review. One list is a type 1 action list, which means that this project is likely to cause a significant environmental impact. And you don't know that until you get into it and you go through all of the reports and the studies that are required, and that you read the conclusions and do a lot of investigation to make sure that you checked all the boxes that are required through the forms that the state provides. So the type 1s are likely to cause an environmental impact. Doesn't mean it will, but it's just likely to because of the magnitude of the type of work that you're proposing. And because we are directly adjacent to Lake Ontario, that is automatically a type 1 action in the Arunquit Bay.
Thank you. And I knew the town board probably knew what they're stepping into responsibility-wise, making sure all the boxes are checked and all that stuff, but I also appreciate that there's several people there and they might be wondering, well, what does this mean? So, do you guys, as the town board, have any questions on that motion I'm about to make? Okay. Well, with that being said, I make a motion to declare the town board as the lead agency for the Sandbar Park Improvement Project.
Second.
Supervisor Perry?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Okay, and we have one last thing tonight, and like I said prior, where we usually don't want to do resolutions at workshops, we also want to have the flexibility to move things along. And Chris Bilo, you find these opportunities and I love it. You are like an entrepreneurial, and the timing of the auction for these things. If you could just explain why really, and I hate to say it, why we couldn't wait till October 7th to do this.
The department, Parks Department has a number of pieces of equipment that we'd like to get to auction so that we can collect the revenue in this year. Unfortunately, because of the timing of the auction, they only take the equipment during a certain period of time, and I think the cutoff for dropping equipment or getting equipment to is October 4th.
Right.
So in order for us to try to make the fall, and they only do it twice a year. So
Is this the Monroe County one?
Teachworth?
Teachworth?
They're doing it twice now.
Oh.
They do it in May, then they do it in the fall. So we missed the May period because we were still using the equipment. We no longer will. We're not gonna need it next year, so in order for us to catch it in the fall.
What year is the turf area?
It's not been,
Does it get used?
no, it hasn't been used in over 10 years.
Okay.
So,
Does anybody have any other questions on that?
no.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
I make a motion to declare the following items for auction from the Parks and Recreation Department: a 2011 Ford F-250, asset tag number 5369, 2009 Chevy Colorado, asset tag number 5036, 2008 Alamo Batwing mower, tag number 04622, and a Jacobson turf aerator, tag number 02620.
Sorry.
Supervisor Perry?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Go get us a lot of money, Chris.
Take us some money.
It will help with the final budget, right, Paul? Yeah, it's gonna be there.
An area that's.
Well, there's that.
Probably not gonna, for parts committee.
That, my friends, concludes the town board workshop for tonight. And Bill, your water's empty, so is that good time? All right. And, I want to thank everybody for coming and